This could be the tipping point for Bitcoin. We'll break it down for you guys today, of course, within the market, along with a little bit of news that will give you some insights as to how the market might respond in the coming months. Don't miss it. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. I want to thank our sponsor, and that is iTrust Capital. This is the place to go get your crypto IRA. And of course, now as we near tax season, one of the things in terms of a strategy is always developing an IRA. It's one of the places that is a great tax haven, so check it out. Go to itrustcapital.com. You can buy, sell crypto, gold and silver over there, and of course, transfer an existing IRA or start a new one. Check it out. Use our funding or our link, and you're going to a $100 funding reward to get started. So see what you guys think. Let's go over to a couple of news items. Of course, one of the big news items today is the CPI inflation falling down to 2.5, in line with expectations of 2.5, but core CPI was unchanged around 3.2. So technically, we are in a continued downward trend on CPI, and a lot of this has been, well, why are we not seeing the markets responding dramatically? And I think the key here is we are most likely waiting for what Mr. Powell is going to do, whether we see a quarter or a 50 basis points move. Many people kind of pointing to that. So August CPI is at 2.5, inflation much higher in many basic necessities, though. We are seeing still a rising cost in a lot of the core elements around things like car insurance, transportation, hospital services, et cetera. Rent is a big one, inflation at 5% right there. And then a little bit on food away from home, still climbing that. That's mostly the restaurant industry, which has been a climbing category for quite some time, which I think is one of the reasons we've seen continued slowdowns here in terms of consumer spending, which of course drives inflation downward. And if you look at Trueflation, you can see it really trending down now to 1.10. We could go under 1% in the next 30 days. We'll see if this holds. Of course, it kind of goes up and down. You get these little spikes. But I think a lot of this is now leaning into the Fed rate cut. Fed rate cut just around the corner. We'll get a chance to hear from Chair Powell whether or not we're going to see that 50 or the 25. Let me know down in the comments if you guys think we're going to go to a 50 basis points reduction or if it will hold with what everybody has been expecting at a quarter point. Drop some mentions down below. Always love to get you guys feedback. And by the way, if you're not subscribed to the channel, take a moment, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now and make sure and jump into the Diamond Circle. It's one of our places where we do additional content and do a market update over there that only goes out to our email list. Check it out. It's free. We always leave a link down below. I want to go to a quick clip here because this is getting into JP Morgan actually thinking this may be a more aggressive cut than what everybody's anticipating. Take a look.
So you want to see a 50 basis point cut. So we've heard different people coming on with different ideas about a 50 basis point cut. Some people think that would spook the market. Other people think it's needed because the Fed's actually behind the curve.
Well, look, it's a dual mandate. And right now you do see some moderation of the labor market. And I do think that the combination of some of the upside risk on inflation over the near term coming down and the labor market conditions softening, which is at odds with the rest of the world, really put in place 50 basis point being the right thing to do. Now, when we look at the rest of the world, we think the gradualism is going to continue there. But for the Fed, I think the focus is on the dual mandate, and they're looking at the labor side of it. I think there's still a debate. I wouldn't necessarily say that this is something that's unanimous, but we're looking at 50 basis points.
All right, so there you have it. We've got one analyst coming in at 50, and I think the market is looking at this at the accelerated format of what's happening in inflation. The key here, of course, I think also is the fact that the jobs have been slowing to the pace that it has been reported over the last couple of jobs reports. So yeah, a 50 could be in play, and I've often said that we're in a position right now where jobs are the most important. If we continue to see this jobs deceleration and we see the fall off on inflation, that gives me a pause because of the amount of impact that has on businesses. When businesses are seeing inflation dropping and jobs slowing, it means that consumer spending is really dropping, and we're nearing a holiday season, so that gets into some big deals. Bitcoin facing a little bit of volatility as inflation data shocks the market. And I think Bitcoin was not necessarily ready for this. Of course, we saw very little movement at all on Bitcoin. Higher than expected core CPI at 0.3 indicates inflationary measures remain persistent. He's also saying that the uptick in core inflation suggests that inflation isn't cooling down as much. But that's not necessarily the scenario that's going to play in for the Fed, which I think is still back to the whether or not we're going to go into the 25 or the 50. So what they talk about on Bitcoin is Bitcoin, broader crypto market, mixed inflation data brings a new wave of uncertainty. And I would agree. I think this is a tipping point for Bitcoin. Do we see it recover out of now what will be its first rate cut in this bull run? And how does Bitcoin respond? Let me know down in the comments. Bitcoin typically performs well in low interest rate environment, which would be at least, we're still in a low interest rate environment. If you think 5%, that's still a very low interest rate environment. More aggressive 50 basis point rate could have ignited a bullish rally for Bitcoin, pushing it past the key resistance around 57 and towards 60. We'll know here just around the corner on from the Fed coming soon. So higher than expected core CPI. Federal Reserve may adopt a cautious approach. This was prior to the report there. And then a mixed CPI data brings both opportunities and risks for the crypto. I think the balance that they're talking about here is the fact that, like I was mentioning earlier, is you've got slowing jobs, but yet at the same time, consumers starting to slow as well, because that can cool a market down very quickly. And if it cools the market down, then you see the impact on retail. Retail has a chilling effect in many cases to the S&P as well. I want to jump over to Ethereum. I've got a clip for you guys from Ben Cowen. He's basically breaking down an ETH chart. Take a look.
I do think there's a pivot coming soon by the Fed, and therefore ETH Bitcoin should theoretically bottom out sometime between now and the end of the year. It only went down for like 1 to 2 more months before ETH Bitcoin really bottomed out. If it does not go below 0.04 before the end of the year, then my guess is it's probably not going to. Last cycle, we know if we overlay two things, if we overlay interest rates, ETH Bitcoin bottomed out after rate cuts, right? So it was about a month after the first rate cuts. It was actually July 31st of 2019, and then ETH Bitcoin bottomed out like the first week of September. So it was basically just a month later. What's actually, I think, a bigger signal than just rate cuts is the balance sheet of the Fed. You can see that it was precisely when the Fed pivoted here from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing. That's what marked the bottom for ETH Bitcoin, right? Like right here. You see that right where they pivoted? That's ultimately what marked the bottom last cycle for ETH Bitcoin. And that is likely going to happen sometime in the next few months.
So key things here right now in crypto. If you're in crypto, you're watching our show, you might be in some altcoins, you may be in ETH or even Bitcoin, but the key here, I think, is there's so many market pressures that are going to have a big impact on these risk markets. And a lot of this is really pending on how this election plays out. Obviously, the debate last night, Harris held her own, and I think it also pushed a lot into the crypto crowd as to whether or not we may actually not have a crypto policy in the White House for another 4 years. That would be pretty devastating, but at the same time, it would pretty much spice up Gary Gensler's move. But you've got, of course, Trump coming in here at 50%, and Harris. This was quite lopsided right after the debate, but has somewhat corrected. But again, Polymarket being one of the predictive markets out there that is pretty much on top of this. A couple things to look at. Polymarket hits an all-time high in user activity, again, tied to the elections. But also remember, Polymarket tracking sports, all kinds of things that you guys can track over there, not available in the United States, but definitely when you look at what's happening around the world, the U.S. is usually right there in the middle of this. A couple of points they hit on right here. Polymarket reached a 72%, almost 73% high in election-related users after the debate. Kamala's odds on Polymarket to win the U.S. elections tied with the former president at 49, and that was following the debate. And then Harris snagged about 3% because remember, Trump was up significantly. Let me zoom in on that for you guys. He was up significantly. So the outcome right now for the Dems still hitting it around 116, Trump holding the lead at around 133. This is in reference to the amount bet on these candidates as to whether or not their probability of winning. Bitcoin usually starts an upward movement with 150 to 160 days after its halving, which is a period that ends in the next 2 weeks. So this aligned with what's happening around the election, around inflation dropping, interest rates adjusting. You kind of see we are in a potential tipping point here for Bitcoin and for a lot of these key tokens out there, including things like XRP, Solana, Avalanche, many of those of which will really start to play into this. Moving on to Polymarket users, you can kind of see the spike right there, again, driven off the election. I imagine this is going to continue to rise. However, I wonder how much of the sports betting will take it through the fall and early next year, because obviously U.S. football season is at its start right now, and the peak is getting heated up. Let's go over to a clip real quick, because this will get into whether or not this position around the political landscape is going to have much of an impact on Bitcoin. Take a look.
And you said after this debate, the Harris campaign will have little reason to do another one. What do you mean?
Well, the fact is, it appears that Harris actually gave more details last night than Trump. It appears as though she was more presidential than Donald Trump, even though she's never been president. But last night's debate, and I remember how I felt in 2020 watching Donald Trump time after time after time after time light into Joe Biden, alienating the people he was trying to win. The level of detail in last night's debate from Harris and from Trump on their economic policies was so slim that the public was left wanting. And as I'm following it, I'm being texted and emailed by people who watch your program and how disappointed they were in both candidates for not being explicit, in both candidates for not being articulate about exactly what they would do, particularly with inflation, particularly with economic concerns, but that Trump missed a golden opportunity to speak up and speak out about why we're in the situation we are now, and that, frankly, he lost the debate last night. Not that she won, but that he lost.
All right, so you can see there, I think the sentiment is that Trump really missed an opportunity there. And again, everybody, I think, understands Trump has been a pro-crypto candidate, along with Robert Kennedy. And I think this is where we are right now. We are in a very precarious situation. How this plays out, because the scenarios post-election could get dire. If you just think about regulation or lack thereof, possibility we could get a surprise from the Harris campaign. All of that's still in the cards, because we are still, close to 60 days out there. But the presidential debate spurs risk-off sentiment in crypto market. And I would agree, I think the market didn't necessarily respond last night, even though it is responding a little bit as we record this. Price of Bitcoin fell 2.6, around 57.7, around 56.1 was the number. And of course, I think that was just a lot of people trying to figure out how this is going to affect the markets. But the debate was sell the news event, with Trump's performing underwhelming in comparison to his previous debate against Biden. So a big deal, I think, when you look at the political landscape and how all this plays out for the future of crypto assets. If you just take a quick look at Bitcoin right now, right here is the current chart. And we'll probably get this video out there, but you can kind of see it's pumped up here from around 53.9. This is on the daily of the last few days. So it's actually had a fairly nice move. Trade MSI on our chart is pumping right now on a positive over the overall sentiment, not up right now. Money's starting to come in a little bit, but way off of a order block right there, which is around 64K. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Will we see a trend here where we could see a 60K Bitcoin back in the framework? Because the next order block's hovering right around 63. A little bit of activity right now. Let's see where ETH is going. ETH still holding on a negative day on the daily right now. Further up, I want to jump onto a couple more tweets. Right here was Perry-Ann Boring. This is the CEO of the Digital Chamber, and her take on last night's debate. Over 50 million Americans owning crypto today, and nearly half of the corporate contributions coming from crypto companies. It's clear that crypto is a key election issue. Major players, the media's decision to omit an even single question on crypto during debate highlights are a clear bias against our industry. I think this is to be expected. I don't know that I was anticipating. I mean, I like Perry-Ann, I would agree with her on most points, but I don't know that I would have been anticipating any mention of crypto, mainly because it would not have been to Harris's benefit had that been brought up. And obviously that was just not going to be the case last night. Crypto policy affects innovation, financial inclusion, future of U.S. leadership. I mean, if you look at this right here, just that statement alone, you would think that that would be a great basis for building a policy on both sides of the house. And I think that's the challenge that a lot of people in crypto have really dealt with, is that we don't understand why this is not a bipartisan topic that everybody could talk about. Breaking right now, S&P 500 now has erased 700 billion of market cap just today. So I think a lot of people are looking at where does this go? And if you look at the S&P, we'll flow down to the S&P real quick and take a look right there on the SPY. You kind of see a little bit of a dip. These are the dailies. But right there, Friday the 30th of August was the last time where we clipped over 5,600, 5,650. We had that big red day, continued downward track, a little bit of adjustment here today, and it looks like we might be on the way back to 5550. We'll see how it plays out, though, for the day. And of course, a lot of this still looking at uncertainty in the markets for sure. Other things that are happening, well, while all that is going on, Tether is continuing to print more money, and that is in the way of profits. They have now recorded more than BlackRock in 2023. So posted a $6.2 billion profit last year, surpassing BlackRock's $5.5 billion. This is a blockchain stablecoin doing this. So pretty impressive when you look at the overall. Other things when you think about crypto is really on a global stage, and you have to look at the EU as being the shining star. Right now, they have put the position of we are pro crypto, we are pro blockchain. So the the UK government introduces a bill to clarify crypto's legal status. And of course, this has been rolling out through Mika. We've reported on this quite a bit, so go back and check out some of our videos there. UK government announced the property bill would clarify the legal status of NFTs, cryptocurrency, and carbon credits. Ironic. The legislation would also create an additional category for property under UK law, identifying digital assets as things. This is a big deal. So it's essential that the law keeps in pace with the evolving tech. The proposed law will give legal protection to owners and companies against fraud and scams while helping judges deal with complex cases. So very good news in the EU right now for digital assets as a whole. Let's take a look at Onchain Summer. It has now come to an end. And if you just think about this, Base has been building out. We saw an explosion last Onchain Summer. And of course, now you look at Base, daily new addresses, another huge spike right here at the end. So they came across the line here with another huge win. And of course, this is only good for, I think, innovation and what Coinbase and Base is trying to do in terms of really spreading the news around crypto. Last up here, of course, if you guys are not in the Diamond Circle, make sure and get in right now. It's a place, as I said, that we always have additional content. And it's also where you can join in on communication directly with me. I do a little chat over there. We do that with both our Diamond Circle members and then also with our, people like our mastermind, which is more of a direct one-to-one. We'll leave a link down below, and we'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.